We have quorum based on what I see.
Yeah, there's quorum.
Okay.
Oh, there's.
We're live.
Yep. Is anybody?
Okay, I've got 7 o'clock. We're going to get started. I ask that everybody please mute whatever device
This
you are
conference will
on.
now be recorded.
If everybody would please mute whatever device they're on, and when you are ready to speak, if you would go ahead and speak. I will ask, I welcome everybody first to the May 7th of 2020 Muscatine City Council meeting. Cinda, will you please do the roll call?
Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember Freilich?
Present.
Councilmember Malcolm?
Present.
Councilmember Gordon?
Present.
Councilmember Brackett?
Present.
Councilmember Brockert? Present. And Councilmember Gendrich?
He was here a minute ago.
Councilmember Gendrich, are you on? I have 5 present.
Thank you, Cinda. We're going to move along with tonight's agenda, and what I would like to ask before we get started is if anybody who would like to speak that's not a council person, if you would please post in the chat box so that I will be able to see who you are and call on you. If you do not have the ability to post in the chat box, when I'm done with everybody in the chat, then I will ask for anybody who wasn't able, for whatever reason, if they don't have proper device, that if they would like to speak. So I think that'll perhaps might help us be able to get through everyone, make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak that wishes to, but make sure that we have a little semblance of order as well. So we are going to not do the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. We're going to wait until we are back together again to resume that. We're going to move on down to number 4, and we are on communications. So I'd like to ask if there is anyone here on this virtual meeting who would like to speak to council about something that is not on tonight's agenda. I do not see anybody in the chat box.
Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Freilich, I have a
Yes.
request from a citizen, if I can speak.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. The question is when the restaurants start to open, we know that we have a restriction on sidewalk, tables, chairs, and stuff for according to code. And he was just wondering if by chance, in order to help alleviate some of the crowdiness, that we could amend for a short period of time or adjust our code to allow restaurants to put seating outside so that they can accommodate more people, because they're going to be at about 50% capacity based on what I'm seeing, what we've heard. So that's it. It's just a question, and like to get some kind of answer if there's anything we can do about it.
Sure.
Mayor, and Andrew Fengman, Assistant Community Development Director. We do have a provision under City Code to allow for outdoor seating on the sidewalk. So that's certainly a program that we could utilize for that.
Thank you.
I read the program too. It's just that, I guess it's not well known, and most people don't realize that it can be done. So I guess it'd be nice if you could at least tell what we can do without getting into trouble.
I would say if any business has an interest in that, if you contact Andrew at City Hall, 264-1550, he'll be able to direct you to the appropriate paperwork and guidance. My concern with a lot of that being done is then you're going to have people that are on the sidewalk walking than being in close proximity of people. But there's no perfect answer. But that would be my suggestion, since we weren't prepared to go to discuss this, is basically that if anybody has any concerns, to contact Andrew and see if he can't navigate through that process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we're listening to it. But
I do not see. Looking in the chat box, I see that Councilman Gendrich is here now.
Well, he was. I'm not sure if he is. His video disappeared again.
Okay. And I'm not seeing any other.
I have a question, Mayor, that I'd like to ask, and I think this actually might be for Kevin. I'm not as familiar with the go-to-meeting options, but for the people that are on their telephones, can they mute and unmute themselves by hitting *6 or #6?
No, they can just, there's a mute button right on it.
Well, but if they're not if they dialed in, if they didn't use the app as a smartphone, if they just called in with their telephone, I believe they also have a mute option, and I think that would be something that, because all of the people that have called in are not muted, at least not.
And that's what our problem is.
Yeah, so I'm seeing noise coming through on some of those.
Is Kevin on the call?
I'm here.
Kevin, do you know if they can do that?
They should be able to. I think we've done that before. The other thing I can do is mute everybody, but then you'd have to unmute yourself. Or haven't done that before, so I'm not sure if that would work or not.
I don't think we'd be able to have you mute everyone, because then people wouldn't be able to speak.
Can we test it real quick before we get too far into this? Because I'm getting more noise coming through here. Can you mute us all for about 10 seconds, Kevin, and let me try and unmute myself?
Muted.
You're all muted. Okay, and it let me unmute right away. So anybody that is on at this point that needs to speak would be able to unmute themselves. And those people that are on the telephone, I believe the people that are called in, I believe the way to unmute that is to hit *6, but I don't know. Do you know that, Kevin?
I do not.
All right, I'll look it up really quick and we can proceed. Mayor, you could, I think if you want to go ahead now, that at least then we don't have the background noise, but you'll have to unmute yourself.
I'm just nervous that somebody might want to speak and isn't able to, so as soon as you can get confirmation of that. And then if somebody joins later, we might have to say that periodically, in case somebody joined the call partial through and doesn't know how they can speak to us.
Yeah, it's *6. I did just confirm it. If you hit *6 if you dialed in on a telephone, if you hit *6, it will unmute or mute either way.
Okay.
Maybe we could add that to the instructions for future meetings.
Yes, put it right on the agenda.
I will do that.
Thank you,
Should
Kevin.
we have somebody try it to make sure it works?
Is there somebody on a phone, a staff person that can try it? Maybe no staff people are on the phone.
I don't know. If anybody that has dialed in with their telephone that is listening right now, please go ahead and hit *6 on your phone and see. Yeah, I see a couple of people that just unmuted.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. We will proceed.
Okay.
So
those people that tested that should go ahead and hit *6 again to remute themselves for now.
In the group here, this is John.
Hey, John.
Hi. I can't get
Thank you,
volume. I can't get volume on my computer. The mic, won't work, but I did get the picture earlier.
Okay. So Kevin, if you will make sure that everybody's muted, we will go from here. We went through communications. I saw no one in the chat and no one offered anything verbally. So we're going to continue with the consent agenda. The following items are considered...
Mayor, this is John.
Okay.
No citizens were able to call in.
Yes, but they didn't. Nobody did.
Okay. Do you mind if I take a second here, since I just got on to give a report on a meeting that I had last Friday on the 4-lane to 3-lane there on Park Avenue?
So that's going to come up in tonight's agenda, so this wouldn't be the right time to do that.
Okay, thank you. I'll take it up here later then. That's fine, yeah.
When we get to that part on the agenda, that would be when I ask for discussion.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, very good.
All righty, thank you. Okay, we are going to... Are we still getting feedback? All right, we're going to move on with the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda.
Your Honor,
Yes.
this is Councilwoman Brockert. I would like to discuss the bills later on. I have some questions about some expenditures.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes items 6A through C, items 8A through G, items 9A and B, items 12A and D, and tonight's bills have been removed and will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Your Honor. Councilman Brackett.
Second by
Gordon.
We have a motion by Councilman Brackett with a second by Councilwoman Gordon to approve the consent agenda with everything but the bills. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion carries. We are going to continue and move down to 7. We have one public hearing tonight, and it concerns the plans, specifications, form of contract, and cost estimate for the Park Avenue conversion project. Now is the time for the public to comment.
And just because I...
John, you can...
No, I was just going to say, just because I insisted everybody mute themselves, I was going to remind people that if they called in, they can hit *6 to unmute themselves so they can speak, and anybody on the app can just unmute themselves through the app.
So if anyone wishes to comment at any time, please type it in the chat, just your name, and then I will call on you. Or you can just say in verbally now. John, did you want to talk about the Park Avenue conversion project?
Like meeting from last Friday afternoon, a couple of concerned citizens live on Grant Street, the east side of Park Avenue, and Jim Edgemond was kind enough to join us. A couple of very informed, knowledgeable citizens, and of course Jim, did a great job too. The citizens did a great job expressing their concerns to us, and I want to compliment for the videos on the 4-lane to 3-lane that are on the website. Like I say, we had a conversation, but I think productive conversation. The citizens are extremely concerned there on Grant Street. Access to their house along Washington Street and is through the street alley of Grant Street and pulling out onto Park Avenue, heading north. They are quite concerned it's going to be a traffic congestion, traffic problem. The only way they're able to manage the situation currently is, if a good-hearted citizen kind of lets them pull out and merge, just from being a good Samaritan, so to speak, gesture. So, with the traffic being cut down through traffic to one lane, there are concerns that when the light is red going north, it's going to be almost impossible for them to pull out, especially during busy times of the day, and likewise pull out into the turning lane and then take a left at the stoplight. If the turning lane is backed up, then they can't get out either. So, Jim did a good job. Videos do a good job of trying to make the situation the best they can, or the best we can of it. There are a lot of positive aspects of Park Avenue going from 4-lane to 3-lane. A lot there too. So, I'm wondering if the engineers can advocate for maybe some kind of signage just before you get to Grant Street. Encourage for Grant Street access onto Park Avenue. Some kind of a warning or a sign. I don't know. I just want to make sure that there is concern. I think it's certainly needs to be, and like I say, Jim did a good job with it. So anyway,
John, are you talking about between Tees and Lincoln School?
well, I'm talking mostly the concern is from Grant Street on the east side of Park Avenue would be Butcher Plumbing and Heating. And
On the east side, okay.
yeah, heading to the east. So when those residents pull out from Grant Street and head north, because through traffic is going to be reduced to one lane, that right-hand lane, the through lane, that if the light is red, there's no room for a right-hand turn signal. So even if you're turning right, traffic can't proceed fast enough to allow people to pull out from Grant Street heading north.
Okay.
If Jim is on there,
Jim?
or they can explain better. I'm
Jim,
sure.
are you on?
Yeah, I got off of the video, but I'm here.
Okay. Can you, I think John's asking for some confirmation that the contractors will put some signage or some other way to notify the public of how to navigate that part during this construction time.
Mayor, Council, I think what John was saying is that that's more of a concern, not so much during construction. It was a concern with the finished product when it's done.
Or after.
So,
okay.
Yeah, after. So certainly we could evaluate that. I think a much more effective way to do this, and John and I didn't talk about this, but a much more effective way to address that if the reality when it's done is objectionable to those people that live there on Grant Street is to play with the signal cycle and the phase lengths in seconds. Honestly, they're pretty adamant about how they feel, but with everything that we've seen, with the history there is for these type of projects, and with the computer generated model that we did for that specific signal, I don't think all of their fears, I don't think are going to come to anything. I think it's actually going to be better than what it is now. I was only willing Friday to say I'm not going to make it any worse, but now that I've seen that computer modeling of that intersection, the left-hand turns have their own green phase, and part of the traffic that backs up that causes the guys on Grant Street there and Butcher is the amount of traffic that backs up in that center lane for left turners. So it's a lot of data. It's a long answer to a short question. But certainly, once we get the project done, we could evaluate all sorts of things that could be done there.
And,
John Cook wondered if maybe even a sign saying "Do not block the intersection," something like that, might be helpful.
yeah, and
The way it is now, they have to cross 2 lanes, and after they're only going to have to cross 1. He points out.
and Mayor,
Yes.
like
Yes.
Jim said, we didn't talk about a sign. That's just something I was thinking about today. That maybe northbound traffic before northbound traffic gets to Grant Street, maybe a sign. I'm not big on all these extra signs and all the written instructions about when you're driving and all that, but maybe it's just something to mention. As Jim said, he did a great job, of explaining and listening and following through with all that with the citizens, and the citizens, did a good job too. So, as far as the sign goes, it may be a half-cocked idea, something like that, but just maybe something to think about.
Sure.
And
We'll keep all these things in mind, and we can address them later, as Jim mentioned.
yes.
Okay, hearing nothing else, do I have a motion to close this public hearing?
Mayor, I'm showing 2 people in the chat room.
I'm not showing any.
Oh, I got a 2 up there on mine, so.
Yeah, I do as well, Mayor.
It's probably John Cook. I already read his comments.
Yes, I just confirmed. It is John.
I already read those out loud during
Move
my
to close,
comment.
Mayor. Move to close.
Second.
This is Councilman Brackett.
Second.
Councilman Freilich, second.
Councilwoman Gore.
All right, we have a motion by Councilman Brackett to close the public hearing with a second by Councilman Freilich. All in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? This public hearing is closed. We are on number 9. And although this is a terrible way to present this honor, I would like to verify that Officer Whitney Pena is on the line. I saw you come on the line. Are you still there, Whitney?
Hello, Mayor. I'm here.
It is our pleasure tonight to present you with a life-saving award. I feel terrible that this is the procedure that we're doing it in, and I wish there was some way that we could make this more special, because we all agree and know that you are, and what you did certainly is as well. Chief, are you there? Hopefully he'll be there by the time we're done. I would like to just share with you what Officer Pena did. I think we need another mute, Kevin. There we go. Phil S. keeps talking.
Mayor, this is Phil Sargent. The chief is on. He may not be able to unmute his phone at this point.
He struggles with his phone every week, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and share with everyone what Officer Pena did. On February 29th of this year, Officer Whitney Pena was off duty at the American attending a kid's birthday party in the pool area. She noticed another female pulling a child from the water in the shallow end of the pool. Once she saw the female pull the child from the shallow end, she ran over to where the adult and child were. Officer Pena noticed the child was purple, blue in the face, and was not breathing. She immediately began CPR on the child with the help of 2 other adults. Officer Pena performed CPR on the child for approximately 4 minutes. The 7-year-old boy then spit out a large amount of water and began to breathe on his own. Paramedics had arrived shortly after the child began to breathe and transported him to the emergency room. Officer Pena, with all her CPR training through the Muscatine Police Department, saved this boy's life by performing CPR. We are extremely proud of Officer Pena. We are honored that she is on the Muscatine Police Force. Chief, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, this is Phil Sargent again. I got a text message from the chief. He's having a problem with his phone. So I'll try speaking for him. We are all very proud of Officer Pena, not only with this, but with everything else she does, and what she did that day speaks volume for her character and for her abilities as a police officer and her caring as a person.
Officer Pena, would you like to say anything?
Kind of put me on the spot there, but I just am grateful I was there that day. I've been in contact with his parents and grandma, and they are very thankful for me there, and now say I will be this child's guardian angel, so I am just excited it went that way.
And Libby Hancock has added that they absolutely love you, Officer Pena. Your family and friends are very proud of you, as are all of us.
Thank you.
As I said, I apologize for this awkward way that we are honoring you, and I have asked the chief to try to do something in the future so that we can properly recognize you, and thank you so much.
Thank you again for this award.
Absolutely. Next, we would like to talk about Officer Jolissa Coleman, and we would like to present her with the Medal of Valor. Officer Coleman, are you there? Jolissa?
Yes, I'm here.
You're here. Okay, great. Sorry about that. I bet it took a minute to unmute.
Yes.
I would like to share with everyone what Officer Jolissa Coleman did and honor her. On February 20th of this year, Officer Jolissa Coleman was en route to the High Bridge for a female attempting to jump from the bridge. Once on scene, Officer Coleman attempted to talk to the female. The female was sitting on the side of the bridge, her feet dangling over the edge. As Officer Coleman came closer, the female moved herself and pushed herself over the ledge, saying that she was going to jump. Officer Coleman got to the ledge in time to grab the female's arm and jacket sleeve, preventing the female from falling into the river. She held on to the female while on the ledge of the bridge, trying to pull the female up. The female landed on the beams of the bridge just under the ledge. The officer continued to talk to her as she was on the beams below the ledge, and eventually she climbed her way back to the bridge and over the railing where she was safe. The actions of Officer Coleman grabbing the female's arm and jacket put Officer Coleman in a situation that put her own life in danger to save someone else's life. We are honored to have Officer Coleman on the Muscatine Police Department force. We are proud of this act that she has done to save someone else's life here in Muscatine, and it's my honor to award her the Medal of Valor. And thank you very much, Officer Coleman. Phil, do you have something you would like to add?
Still.
I don't think I caused
Officer
her.
Coleman, do you have something you'd like to say? Can you hear us, Officer Coleman?
Yes.
Is there anything that you'd like to add?
It's one of those things where I just happened to be in the area and did my job and will continue to do my job. This is that. So I really appreciate the award, and I really appreciate the people I work with and being there for me also. So thank you.
We thank you so much and appreciate all that you do every day, not just this day. And as I said, I've asked the chief to try to put something together at a later date when we can all be together again. Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations. Phil, are you there?
I am here, Mayor.
Is there anything you'd like to say about Officer Coleman?
Officer Coleman has done a wonderful job for the agency since she's been on the department, and her actions that night are nothing short of heroic. The information and video from that incident we gave to a committee of officers, and it was their recommendation for the Medal of Valor. Her actions are exceptional, and we are very lucky to have her on our agency, and thank her very much for everything she does for the agency and for the city of Muscatine.
Thank you. Thank you to both of them. And we appreciate you, Phil, and as well as the chief for bringing this to our attention and the committee as well. Thank you again, and we are going to move on. We have a couple of proclamations tonight, and I didn't read the one a few weeks ago when we honored our telecommunicators. That was our first council meeting over the phone, and I thought it might be awkward, and I regret that now because I wish that I had been able to honor them in a better way. But I have spoken with them, and hopefully they understand. And so because of that, I do want to make sure, in light of all of the situation that we're going through with the COVID-19 pandemic, we do need to spend more time thanking and honoring those who are working every day to protect us. And so I am going to read the proclamation, as this is National Police Week, and we want to certainly make sure that we talk about Peace Officers Memorial Day as we do each year. Whereas the Congress and the President of the United States have designated the week of May 10th through 16th of 2020 as National Police Week, and the Wednesday of that week, which will be next week, as Peace Officers Memorial Day. And whereas the members of the Muscatine Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of our community, and whereas since the first recorded police death in 1791, more than 21,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty, including 4 members of the Muscatine Police Department. And whereas the men and women of the Muscatine Police Department unceasingly provide a vital public service, now therefore I, Diana L. Broderson, Mayor of the City of Muscatine, call upon all citizens of our community and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 10th through 16th as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our community may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and so doing have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of Muscatine to observe Wednesday, May 13th as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. In witness thereof, I have set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Muscatine to be affixed on this proclamation. Thank you to all of our peace officers. The next proclamation is for Emergency Medical Services Week, whereas emergency medical services are a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas emergency medical services have grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical providers. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, I, Diana Broderson, Mayor of the City of Muscatine, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 17th through 23rd of 2020 as Emergency Medical Services Week, with the theme, EMS Strong, Ready Today, Preparing for Tomorrow. And I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. I have set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Muscatine to be affixed this day, May 7th of 2020. Thank you to all of these service providers and all that they do for our city. We are going to continue on with tonight's agenda. We are down to 11A, and we have presented for City Council's consideration a resolution approving the plans and specifications for the Park Avenue 4 to 3 lane conversion project. The plans have progressed to the point of being reviewed by the Iowa Department of Transportation, and the project is scheduled for the June bid letting by the Iowa Department of Transportation. This project is being funded by multiple sources, including the Iowa Department of Transportation, Muscatine Power and Water, the City of Muscatine. This is what we talked about in public hearing A, and do I have a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted?
This is Councilman Gendrich, Mayor. I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Councilman Brackett, second.
Hopkins.
We have a motion by Councilman Gendrich with a second by Councilman Brackett. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Councilwoman Brockert, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Gendrich?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gordon?
Aye.
Councilman Hopkins?
Aye.
Councilman Freilich?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. We are on 11B. We have presented for City Council's consideration a resolution approving an amended development agreement with NPSW Enterprises. The original agreement was based on the anticipated completion date of the infrastructure portion of the project by December 31 of 2019. Due to a number of factors, a portion of the infrastructure was delayed and is now scheduled to be completed in calendar year 2020. The developer has requested the amendment to reflect a completion date no later than December 31 of 2020. This change also affects the dates for tax increment financing process throughout the agreement. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted?
Councilwoman Gordon?
Your Honor.
Second
We
by
have a
Gordon.
motion by Councilman Gordon with a second by Councilman Brackett. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd have a question, Councilman Freilich.
Please go ahead.
Okay, being new to the council, this was done prior to the four of us coming onto the council, so I have a couple of questions. On this development agreement, it was supposed to be completed, the infrastructure was supposed to be completed on the 31st of December. It says due to a number of factors. I guess I'd like to know what the factors were and why we're delaying it for a whole year. Something seems out of whack to me, and I just like information on why it's this way.
Is Brian Steinman on there or Jim?
This is Andrew Fangman. I can answer that one. They were primarily delayed because of the wetness of last year, that they weren't able to get all their paving done.
Does that answer your question, Councilman Freilich?
Well, I guess so, but one of the questions is it's going to be a whole nother year before this moves on? It's 4 months past the due date that was started, and I'm questioning why they waited 4 months to bring it to council, and that seems like a long period of time before we even discussed it and know anything about it, and then yet to give them another year to finish this. That's my question.
This is Andrew Fangman again. They'll be done well before December. My understanding is that it's all the pavement's essentially in now, and it's kind of there into the final bits of it. I think the reason that the December 31st date was chosen was just to make sure we wouldn't have to come back a second time. Really pushing this deadline back, it's more of a burden on them than it is the city, because they can't start receiving their tax rebates until all their infrastructure is done. We don't pay out anything until it's all done. So all the risk goes on to them with this.
So it's not costing the city anything?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm concerned why it took 4 months from the time the agreement was supposed to be settled in December to come to the council now, 4 months later. No answer for that one.
I think on that one, I think a lot of it is that things kind of got lost a bit in the shuffle with everything that's gone on in the world. I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's...
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hearing nothing else, and there's nothing in the chat box. Councilwoman Brockert, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gordon?
Aye.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilman Freilich?
Aye.
Councilman Hopkins?
Aye.
Councilman Gendrich?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. We're on 11C. Presented for City Council's consideration is a resolution approving an internal advance of funds for the Economic Assistance for Muscatine Small Business Program. This resolution will authorize an internal advance of $400,000 for the new Economic Assistance for Muscatine Small Business Program for those businesses impacted by COVID-19. The advance will be from the city's general fund and will be repaid from the available fund balance in the South End TIF Fund on or before June 1st of 2020. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted?
So moved by Councilwoman Gordon.
A second by Councilman Malcolm.
I didn't hear who seconded that.
I seconded, Councilman Malcolm.
Malcolm. We have a motion by Councilwoman Gordon with a second by Councilman Malcolm. Is there any discussion? I would just like to thank Peggy for the idea, and Greg and Jody for helping put all of the pieces together, and the Community Foundation for helping work through this process to help our small businesses. Is there any other comments?
Mayor, Councilman Freilich.
Yes.
I had a citizen ask me if there's going to be any of the money left, or the original allocation of $100,000 for this year for new business startups for the 2020 year. And I couldn't answer that question because I wasn't sure if there is. Is all that money already been put out for 2020 of the $100,000 for the small business actual program? Or is there money still available for somebody that's starting a new business of that money?
Is Jody on the line, or?
Yes. Mayor, Council, this is Jody Royal, Goodwin Community Development Director, and we do expect to be able to utilize the existing funds, so we have about $100,000 there once the world kind of starts to right itself to help businesses as we would have before.
So, Jody, they just need to go through the normal process of applying for the $25,000 funds, right?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Hearing nothing else. Councilwoman Gordon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilman Freilich?
Aye.
Councilman Hopkins?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Gendrich?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. We're on 11D. We have presented for City Council's consideration a resolution setting a public hearing for May 21 of 2020 on Amendment Number 2 to the city's fiscal year 1920, 2019-2020 budget. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor. Councilman Freilich.
Second, Your Honor. Councilman Brackett.
We have a motion by Councilman Freilich with a second by Councilman Brackett. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, and none in the chat. Councilman Gordon, or Councilwoman Gordon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilman Freilich?
Aye.
Councilman Hopkins?
Aye.
Councilwoman Brockert?
Aye.
Councilman Gendrich?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. We're on 11E. Presented for City Council's consideration is a resolution approving a contract through the CARES, Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act for emergency relief relating to operating assistance for the Muscabus. The grant of $575,708 is from the Federal Transit Administration. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilman Gendrich with a second by Councilman Hopkins. Is there any discussion? Hearing none and nothing in the chat. Councilwoman Brockert, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Gendrich?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilman Hopkins?
Aye.
Councilman Freilich?
Aye.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gordon?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes, and we are on 11F. Presented for City Council's consideration is a resolution approving the non-union pay plan effective July 1 of 2020. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution as submitted.
So moved, Councilwoman Gordon.
Second.
Second, Councilman Brackett.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Gordon with a second by Councilman Brackett. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Nothing in the chat. Yeah, go ahead.
I have mixed feelings about any sort of pay raise right now without knowing exactly what our revenues are going to be, because I would hate to give something and then have to take it back, or worse yet, ask them to take a pay cut altogether. So can we table this until we have a better idea of what our revenues are going to be? Or should we just go ahead and approve it and let the chips fall where they may?
Anyone else?
You know, I don't know that I have as strong of concerns about it as Councilwoman Brockert, but I guess my question would be if we tabled it to for this meeting until we have a report on the status of our revenue, would that hinder our ability to keep this on time if we decide to proceed forward with it as is?
Well,
It's effective July 1.
right. Is Stephanie on? I mean, it's more of an accounting.
Yep, Council, Mayor, Council, I am Stephanie, this is Stephanie Romanoli, Human Resources Manager for the city of Muscatine. I am, it wouldn't really hinder us if we postpone the process of approving the pay plan in terms of getting things set up and ready to go. My 2 points I guess I'd like to make is, your approval of this tonight wouldn't change anything in terms of us having to, if the budget presented itself other than what we were expecting, we could certainly make changes as needed going forward. This gives the department time to kind of know where their pay is going, where the non-union employees are going. This amount obviously was budgeted for this year, and I'd like to also remind council that the unions will be getting their agreed to pay increases, and not approving pay raises for the non-union employees does cause some issues with compression, particularly in police and fire where there's a rank structure. So I guess those are my thoughts on it.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie.
Stephanie, go ahead.
I don't want to pick on anyone non-union, because that's where I worked for 40 years was non-union. So I just am concerned about where this is going to lead us as far as the available revenues we're going to have come July 1st.
Sure, and that's an understandable concern, absolutely. And, should we be in the position that we can't fund things that were budgeted for, we'll obviously have to make some adjustments there. And I know that staff would be understanding of that.
Okay. Do we have a contingency?
Stephanie, are you saying the council can go ahead and approve it tonight, and they could still vote to rescind that later before July 1 if need be?
Yeah, I think if Nancy's on, she might be able to answer that question better, but I think, this just puts in place the formal, this is what the wages are scheduled to be on July 1st. Obviously, if the budget indicated we weren't able to do that, we'd have to make some adjustments otherwise.
Okay. Do we have a contingency plan, Stephanie, in case we aren't able to do this? Do we have like 1% or 1.5% or 2%, what those numbers would look like going into the new fiscal year?
We don't at this point. We have not done that, but we would be able to calculate those numbers if council wanted that.
That might be helpful, especially when we have our discussion next week.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
So Councilwoman Brockert, are you comfortable going forward?
Yes, I am now. Thank you.
Hearing nothing else and nothing in the chat. Councilwoman Brockert, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Gendrich?
Aye.
Councilman Brackett?
Aye.
Councilwoman Gordon?
Aye.
Councilman Malcolm?
Aye.
Councilman Freilich?
Aye.
Councilman Hopkins?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with all ayes. We are on 11G. We have presented for City Council's consideration a request to approve the fire contract to be in effect from 7/1 of 2020 to June 30th of 2023. The primary change to this contract were changes to the wage schedule. Is there a motion to approve the request as submitted?
So moved,
So moved, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Gordon.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Gordon with the second by Councilman Brackett. Is there any discussion? Hearing nothing and nothing in the chat boxes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The request is approved with all ayes. And we are on 11H. We have presented for City Council's consideration a request to approve property rights associated with the Park Avenue 4 to 3 lane conversion project. All property rights have been negotiated and the owners have signed the agreement. Do I have a motion to approve the request as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor. Councilwoman Brockert.
Second. Gendrich.
Do I have a second? We have a motion by Councilwoman Brockert with a second by Councilman Gendrich. Is there any discussion? Hearing nothing and nothing in the chat boxes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The request is approved with all ayes. And we are on 11I. Presented for City Council's consideration is a request to approve change order 008 for the Second and Mulberry Roundabout project. This change order adds a parking lot in the northeast corner for HNI. This was part of the negotiated price for the property needed for the roundabout. Is there a motion to approve the request as submitted?
So moved by Councilwoman.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Brockert with a second by Councilman Hopkins. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Freilich?
Go ahead.
On this, I'm confused by the change order. I do not understand this change order. I guess I must be pretty stupid, but I don't see, what's the change? What are we changing?
Mayor, Council, this is Jim Edgemont, the city engineer. The lingo is that it's a change order, and the reason that it's called that is because you're modifying the contract. You're either adding work or taking work away from the contract. So in that aspect, maybe it's a little misleading. But in essence, what we're doing is adding to that contract the work to construct that parking lot in the northeast corner of that intersection. Did that help?
Well, that was the original agreement, right? Is that correct? That we were going to pay $44,500 of the total cost. That was the maximum we were going to pay. So,
yes.
What's the actual change then? I guess I'm missing something here.
Well, no, there's no change to that. Our maximum out of pocket is still that dollar number of the 44,000. But to officially, formally modify the contract and put that work in, you need to process. We feel you need to process a piece of paperwork like this and get it through council, so it's very clear that that's what the intent was and that's what the project is going to be. I do think, if I remember right, there's some place in code that, all change orders to to public works contracts need to go through city council too.
I've got a question. This is Councilman Brackett.
Go ahead.
Because I'm listening to Councilman Freilich's question, and I think what he's asking is, if this was planned all along, why is it a change request now? Why wasn't it just part of the original project?
Thank you for explaining that better.
Thank you. The negotiation, in essence, for this was still ongoing when that contract got let.
Okay, that makes sense then.
All right.
Thank you. Hearing nothing else and nothing in the chat box, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? This request is approved with all ayes. And we are on 11J. We have presented for City Council's consideration a request to approve the issuance of a purchase order in the amount of $5,522.48 to MHE for the purchase of a pallet rack system for the high-strength waste receiving project. 4 quotes were received, with MHE being the low bidder. Do I have a motion to approve the request as submitted?
Councilman Brackett, so moved, Your Honor.
Second?
Second, Your Honor, Councilwoman Brockert.
We have a motion by Councilman Brackett with the second by Councilwoman Brockert. Is there any discussion?
Yes, did we budget for this?
That's my question.
Hi, everybody. John Cook, Director, Water and Resource Recovery Facility. This was part of the extras projects that we knew we were probably going to have eventually. We are very, very busy down there, which is great news. And stacking and putting these racks up will help us to accept more material and actually be able to stage our processing of the material that we have. I have produced a list several times about extras that'll be coming later on in the project, and this is one of those that we have listed out that we would need to have eventually. We just didn't know how big they would be or how many we would need until we really started going. So now we're proceeding with that purpose.
So what?
I guess the question, John, is, where's the money coming from, John?
This is still money left over from the high strength waste project that we budgeted. We had $3 million budgeted for this, and the project cost was below that number, and there's still money available for that. And we continue to purchase items that we find that we need to progress the project as we go forward. And so there's still money budgeted for this. It was just kind of a slush fund, perhaps, to say that we didn't always know exactly what we would need, so we still have that money budgeted, and we're proceeding with it.
Okay, as long as we're not taking any more budget money that's not approved, so that's fine.
Yeah, my only comment would be on when you bring more of these forward, just include that bit in the narrative, and I won't have any questions at all.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Will do, and I look forward to seeing everybody down there. It's pretty exciting to see what's going on. We have a lot of interest. We have everything going gangbusters right now. It's really, really exciting. So the fact that we need to have more storage space means we just have a lot of people interested in our project, which is exactly what we were anticipating.
Great. I'm extremely supportive of that project, and I look forward to being able to come down and check things out when we don't have to exercise social distancing any longer. So thank you, John.
Thank you.
You can actually come down.
Nothing else?
It's a very large building, so you can come down anytime.
I'll hit you up then.
Let me know.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Hearing nothing else and nothing in the chat, all in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? The request is approved with all ayes. 11K. Presented for City Council's consideration is a request to approve the issuance of a purchase order in the amount of $19,197 to Impact 7G for the permitting, removal, and monitoring of underground storage tank removal project. The Department of Natural Resources will reimburse the city $15,000 of the removal cost. The remaining $4,697 will be paid for out of funds from the Department of Transportation Facility Project. Do I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved, Your Honor. So moved. Malcolm.
Second?
Second. Gendrich.
We have a motion by Councilman Malcolm with a second by Councilman Gendrich. Is there any discussion? Hearing nothing and nothing in the chat box, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Request is approved with all ayes. We're on 11L. Presented for City Council's consideration is a request to approve the acceptance of a cdbg grant from the Iowa Economic Development Authority. The city has been awarded this grant in the amount of $53,004 to support expanding the community's capacity to provide food services for those in need and improve the capacity of the healthcare system. Is there a motion to approve the request as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor. Councilman Brackett.
Second, Councilman Freilich.
We have a motion by Councilman Brackett with a second by Councilman Freilich. Is there any discussion? Hearing nothing and nothing in the chat box. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? The request is approved with all ayes. We're on 11M. Presented for City Council's consideration is a request to approve an agreement with Barker Lamar for the installation of additional monitoring wells at Muscatine County Sanitary Landfill. This agreement, in the amount of $7,725, will approve the installation of additional equipment to provide data necessary to complete the corrective measures report that is required by the Department of Natural Resources and verify leachate migration limits. Is there a motion to approve the request as submitted?
So moved.
Your Honor.
Okay. We have a
However
motion
you wanna
by
do it.
Councilwoman Gordon with a second by Councilwoman Brockert, I believe.
Yes.
Is there any discussion?
Same question as the last item I asked a question on. Is this budgeted for, and if so, what fund is it coming from? I know we need to do it. That's not a question, but, you know, just following through.
Mayor, Council, this is Dave.
We have Dave or Brian?
Yes,
Dave,
this is
there you
Dave.
go.
We do have in our landfill operating budget a line item for such engineering expenses. When we set this line item, the projects aren't necessarily spelled out. We kind of know what they are as the year progresses, but yes, there is a line item in the budget for this.
Okay, that answers my question, and I would just say the same thing, because we had for quite a while gotten into the habit of having that in the agenda, and I'd hate to see it drop out. It is nice to have that there so we don't have to ask that question, you know, of where's the money coming from. A lot of the expenditure items, you know, have that part included so that we know whether it was budgeted, and if it wasn't budgeted, what fund it's coming from, and whether or not it'll end up triggering a budget amendment. So that would be my comment on that. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, in order to make that happen, you probably got to talk to the powers that be. That'd be Cinda right there, who looks like a princess tonight with the yellow curtains, and she's framed with the yellow shirt. I just had to add that. Okay, anything else? Hearing nothing and nothing in the chat box. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed? The request is approved with all ayes. And we are on 11N. We have presented for City Council's consideration a request to approve the issuance of a purchase order in the amount of $368,486 to Triple B Construction for the placement of riprap revetment, I believe, stone lining for the shore from Mad Creek to the entryway to the Muscatine Boat Harbor. FEMA is going to pay 75%, $276,364.50. The state of Iowa will fund 10%, $36,848.60, and the city of Muscatine will be responsible for the remaining 15%, $55,272. Future bonding proceeds will fund the city's portion of this project. Do I have a motion to approve the request as submitted?
So moved, Your Honor. Councilman Brackett.
Do I have a second? All right, we have Councilman Brackett and with a motion and Councilman Hopkins for a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing nothing and nothing in the chat box. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? The request is approved with all ayes. Next, we're going to have a presentation and discussion regarding reopening city operations. Council had asked for department heads to give us some ideas on where they're at. I believe, Greg, didn't you say that you put together a PowerPoint from their suggestions?
Can't hear you.
There. So if you hit your mute button on your phone and hit *6, you're double muted. And what I would like to check, can you hear me if I just use this? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so the staff has provided us input as to where we're headed and what our thoughts are on how we will reopen the community, and we're looking forward to getting that done. You should soon see the PowerPoint that's just popping up. I'm going to present this for the purpose of getting through it relatively expeditiously, but the staff is here and is capable and willing to answer questions and bail me out if need be when we get through some of these things. Kevin, let's move on, or whoever's driving the slides. Next slide, please.
Hang on, my computer's stuck.
We can see the slide over on the left side if you want to just go ahead and continue, Greg.
Okay, so our intent is to continue to follow Governor Reynolds' proclamations as she lays them out. We received one last night that, frankly, will not have a huge impact on the city's operations. It will bring to life some of the businesses in the community and the like, but it will not have a huge impact on what we're doing in the city. So we do intend to carry on with whatever the governor comes up with, and we also think we're going to work through this in something of a phased approach. We know that we don't have any business going all in, and we've got a lot of things to think through as we get this carried on. Kevin? So since the initial proclamation, we have closed all buildings or have limited public access to those buildings. Transfer stations have been closed except to commercial carriers. The Musca bus has been went from the full run of services to limited shuttle or limited routes, and then down to just shuttle services, kind of a taxi service, if you will. And we have suspended fees in the process of doing that. The fire department, the police department have stopped their community interactions, the tours, etc., for the time being. And the library and the art center are closed, though they're doing things online to enable people to take advantage of the services that they can offer. And now the library has also started a curbside offering of reading materials. Building inspections have been minimized and modified to limit personal encounters. We really do not want the inspectors to be in touch with any more people than they have to be, and so that's how that's been working. And the parking tickets have been suspended at the meters. We're still pretty much enforcing only 2-hour tickets for people who overstay their welcome at those meters. The soccer complex, Kent Stein, sand volleyball courts remain closed. The playgrounds, Riverfront Splash, skate parks remain closed. Pearl City Station, Riverview Center, park shelters are all closed. Also, Rich tells me that one of the key things that people ask about is what's going on with the water fountains. Well, because we can't get around and sanitize them all the time, there are the restrooms, we've made the determination to get them closed. The recreation programs are day-to-day. Their efforts are underway to see what we might do to expand options for small groups of people to take advantage of that, and that will open up a little bit more as the proclamation enables. And special events continue to be canceled by requesting groups. Soccer tournament, I think, to cancel history. While we do plan to continue in social distancing, we're going to pay strict attention to hygiene, cleaning throughout the facilities. We are going to continue limited face-to-face meetings. Parking ticket relief will remain in effect until June. It is our intent now, and we'll ask for your guidance on this, I guess, that our intent is to leave City Hall closed until June 1st. And we intend to extend the paid off plan until that period as well. And we're going to continue limiting access to all city buildings. We will continue, the Community Development Group will continue modified inspection processes, including inspectors evaluating their safety in order to carry out inspections. And we can encourage online permit submittals, minimize the number of clients coming to the building at any given time, and use mail and electronic means to submit housing assistance documentation. Public Works, the transfer station will reopen soon. Intent is to have a modified payment plan where there's some sort of a ready access to a credit card provider or something of that effect so that we can get more people to, I know a lot of people are ready to get their trash out of their yards. You get stuck at home, you tend to clean. And so we look forward to having that open up. The Muska Bus will gradually introduce more routes as the opportunity presents itself. But for the time being, we will continue shuttles, and they'll keep disinfecting all day long. And projects have continued where it makes sense. For the most part, a lot of the work that has been underway for some time as Public Works have continued. So for Parks and Recs, dog parks, thankfully, for my household, the parks, green spaces, trails, tennis courts, pickleball courts, they're open. The golf course and disc golf course are open. All of those are open under the guidelines of social distancing, and I know that's being strictly adhered to at the golf course, and I see that happening all the time at the dog park as well. The plans are to open the aquatic center after Memorial Day weekend, but only when and if the state restrictions are lifted enough to allow for that activity. We need to get a sense of what's the right thing to do there, because frankly, you know, it's one thing to open the pool and spend the money to do that. It's another to see who will attend, and so we need to do some contemplating and talking to some people about how that'll play out. And I know Rich and his teams are concentrating on getting that done. Ramps and boat docks are open. Cemetery services remain open. Consideration of small group pod like recreational programs at soccer and Kent Stein Fields are continue to see what we might do to encourage participation by smaller groups in events like that. So, I mean, I know I'm blowing through this thing. In summary, safety first. Police and fire are still responding and protecting our communities. We do want to keep City Hall closed for the time being. We want to limit access to all city buildings. And if we open with facilities, we will have to enforce social distancing so that we can ensure that we keep our folks safe. What does make sense about the pool? We open it, will people come? We don't put a date on it soon, we'll potentially lose the staff that struggle to keep there. Lifeguards can be tricky to get hired, and once you have good ones, you hate to see them go away. And so we need to make some determinations there. And when it comes to Kent Stein, the soccer fields, will people distance themselves at events? We have to limit attendance to ensure that we can make that happen, or what other measures can we take? So there's several things we need to work through, and we will, and we'll do this under the guidance of the state and the public health department and the like. So that's the 100-mile-an-hour presentation that I had, and we're open to questions.
Council, any questions?
I have a statement. This is Councilman Brackett. I just would like to say that I appreciate the caution that staff is exercising in what was just presented, and I like what I saw with that, and and would like to say thank you for everybody that took part in getting that put together and making sure that when we start to reopen things, we do it in an intelligent and cautious manner. I would hate to rush to do it and then just further the problem. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? I think the only thing I would ask is, as we start to open things, if, as things open, if council, we can get an email out to us, because we do get the calls from the public all the time on what's open, what's closed. So if we can keep that open communication going to us so that we can respond appropriately. I think these are all good measures. The department heads certainly know their own department, and they know what's doable and what's not. And so the trust is certainly there to make sure that that they will open accordingly.
Duly noted, we'll do that, Mayor.
Thank you. I don't hear anything else, and I don't see anything in the chat boxes. Certainly big thanks to all of the department heads, to Greg, and for putting this together and keeping us updated. I know, too, that the police are having to do a lot. That was mentioned in the slideshow there, to try to enforce things. And I know they're getting calls all the time because I send a whole bunch their way. And so I know they're going above and beyond trying to help us all get through this. And big thanks to them for that. Hearing nothing else, I think we'll go ahead and call that discussion done. I don't hear anything else, and I don't see anything on the chat. We will move on to P. We are going to have a discussion and possible action regarding changes to the city code regarding chickens. Councilmember Hopkins brought this forward, and I would like to share with you how I'm going to have the process go for this. So I'm going to call on Councilman Hopkins to open the discussion, and then I will ask council if they have anything that they want to add, and then I will open it up to community comment. So if you have something that you would like to say as a citizen, please start putting your name in the chat box, and I will call on you. After I get through all of the people that have put their name in the chat box, then I will ask if there's anybody who weren't able to put their name in the chat box. And then I will go back to council and ask for any final comments for them, and then I will open it up to see if council wishes to make a motion. And if they do, we will follow the appropriate voting method. So the first thing that I'm going to do is call on Councilmember Hopkins to open the discussion. Councilman Hopkins, please continue.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Alderson. I think all of the council has, in the past week, gotten at least one email from a Megan Kohler. Today I got a second one that included a list of, an extensive list of people that I'm assuming are in favor of changing the code. Now, I would like to say to the council, before we go any farther, I'm not in favor of or opposed to. I just want, I know that the direction the council is going with regards to the coronavirus, and I think it's at least our obligation to hear this argument. If you drive around and you're looking for chicken coops, and that's the important part, looking for chicken coops, I think you'll find a lot more than what are permitted for. So, again, I'm waiting to hear from council and what your feelings are.
Thank you, Councilman Hopkins. Council, are there any of you who wish to speak?
I would, Mayor. This is Councilman Brackett.
Go ahead.
So, you know, this is something that I've talked about before. A lot of other cities, you know, both larger cities, you know, smaller cities, you know, I don't know that that would apply as a comparison, but, you know, there's a number of larger cities, and some of that information was sent to the council from Megan in regards to this. I've done, you know, some of my own reading on this topic as well as having, friends that live in larger cities such as Los Angeles that, are allowed to keep chickens in their yard and even smaller, lot lines than what we have here. The regulation that we have currently is not a restriction on owning chickens in Muscatine, but it's a restriction on people under a certain income level owning chickens, because it is a property size restriction, which means if you are well off enough to own enough property, you're allowed to own chickens. But if you do not fit that income guideline that would allow you to own that size of property, then you're not allowed to own chickens. So that's one issue I've got with it that I've had in the past. Now, where it becomes more urgent at this point in time is we're starting to see issues with our food chain, with the food supply chain. One of the problems that is brought to our attention just this week is with meat. Hy-Vee at this time is now restricting the quantity of meat that you can purchase at any given time, and that, I believe, was out of necessity because they were struggling to keep meat in stock because they're not getting their shipments as fast, and we're seeing the outbreaks at all the different meat packing facilities. So regardless of what the regulations are, coming down from the federal government stating that those meatpacking facilities are required to stay open at this point in time, if they don't have the staff to process the meat because everybody, because they have so many people that are sick, then it doesn't matter what the regulations are. They're not going to be able to process the meat at the normal speed. So given things like that, that just puts even more importance on giving people another avenue to provide food for themselves. And as long as we're not talking about roosters, I don't know too many people that would really have an issue with chickens in their neighborhood. If somebody is irresponsible, there's plenty of things within our city code that would prevent, that would allow remediation in that case. So there's other portions of the code that talk about nuisance and waste and smells and noise and a variety of different things that could come into play that can help with that. What I would like to see is that we make an exception to zoning Title 10, Chapter 29, which is the section that deals on keeping of animals in residential districts. And currently what we have in there is a section that, under the definitions, it talks about domestic companion animals, small farm type animals, medium farm type animals, and it currently allows under, any parcel that is under 2 acres in size, you're not allowed to own any of the small or medium farm type animals, which it includes chickens under the small farm type. If you have 2 acres to up to 20 acres, then you can have 4 of any given type of animal, which is a extremely low number in my opinion. Keeping 4 chickens isn't going to really provide you a whole lot. But once again, that is a limit to, you have to have 2 acres. Now, I have a very, personally, I have a fairly large property here in town, but I don't meet the 2 acre criteria. I have plenty of room on my property to house chickens and not interfere with my neighbors in any way, shape, or form. And I would be able to do that with a substantially smaller piece of property as well. What I would like to see is that we would come up with a change to the code that would allow people to have, and I'm not stuck on a number, but I don't think that, I think that we would need to have it somewhere, in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 birds on the low end, to be feasible to make this difference for people's lives. So that's what I would like to see us move towards. And I don't think that it would take an extensive change of the code if we had, if we took the chicken portion out of the definition and added, we may have to add an additional item in there. And I'd be open to some setbacks, from other dwellings, to make sure that this isn't sitting 1 foot away from somebody's house that's not the person that has the chickens. And I would want to see a continued restriction. There's restrictions in the code on commercial operation. I would not want to see this be something where people are utilizing it for a business, but only for personal use. So I'll stop now and see whatever others have to say.
Mayor?
Your Honor.
Yes.
Councilman Freilich?
Councilwoman Brockert is next, and then
Okay.
Councilwoman Gordon, and then you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Councilwoman
Thank you,
Brockert,
Mayor.
go ahead.
I grew up on a farm. We had chickens. They don't always do what you would expect them to do, and it does take a certain amount of land in order to properly raise and care for them. So I was thinking on a lot our size, and we have a half-acre lot, and even a quarter of an acre, I wouldn't want anyone to have more than 10 birds at one time because I foresee nothing but problems and a mess, especially if you don't keep up after them every day. And what are we looking at? Are you thinking we should change the code so that folks who've never raised a bird in their life other than to put it in the freezer would know how to properly take care of the chickens and properly house them, keep them over the winter? If granted, the eggs are wonderful, the chicken is marvelous, but you've got to keep after them, try to keep things clean, and they can carry little critters around with them as well, which would upset some neighbors. So,
Thank you.
that's my 2 cents.
Councilwoman Gordon.
Okay, well, my 2 cents might be a little longer, and we're going to say sort of counterpoint here, because I'm going to come out and say I'm opposed to fast-tracking an ordinance change. I'm not opposed to backyard chickens. We went after that in 2016 up here and came very close to an ordinance change that was sort of logical, even though I think we can refine it. So I'm concerned with activating it tonight or within the next week. I recommend that we follow the normal structured ordinance flow, which would allow the city teams to set up the processes and implement a safe and sustainable program. These are live animals we're talking about, and an investment by the people, that we need something that will be able to be sustained and not just, it's not a fee that we're changing. I understand the desire to allow residents to be self-sufficient and reduce any food insecurities, but my estimate is that we should be providing this option to a very small group. So if we fast track it tonight, we will probably get less than 1% of the households in Muscatine actually requesting this. I think we need to do it. We need to do it wisely. There's a lot to be considered by our departments, such as ordinance change, permitting, location and structure that Kelsey pointed out. Chickens, I'm with both Kelsey and Nadine on that. Most cities, and I've looked at the ordinances in the surrounding areas, go to like 4 to 6. I think 10 would be logical. No roosters, no other fowls, no commercial, no slaughtering outside, okay? Egg and meat, fine, but you don't slaughter outside. There's health and sanitary requirements we need to look at, and we need to look at enforcement. Because if I'm a neighbor that doesn't like the smell, how do I call in the nuisance? I just want to make sure all those things are clear and concise, and I think we go through the normal process if we can. Just as an FYI, some of the fees that are around locally, the Quad Cities tend to have fees in the $25 annually. Iowa City has a first fee of $100. The second annual fee is $75 after that, and they limit it to 4 chickens. A lot of them request classes, online classes, not in person, which I think would help with the education and the commitment to this type of project. It's also interesting that the year that Davenport started their program, they ended up with only 29 permits. Now, that was in late 2017. The other towns, like Rock Island, had 4 permits. Moline had 23. Iowa City couldn't get that count, and Clinton had 6. So the adoption is somewhat slow. So I don't know if it would get us the food insecurities for a majority of people. We do need to also recommend looking at other things for food insecurities. That is a big issue right now. So I'd like to see us look at it, but look at it in our normal structure. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Councilman Freilich.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a little different view on this simply because I have a son that lives on a farm and does raise chickens. And believe me, hens make a lot of noise. They're extremely vocal when they're agitated, and they do crow. That's a fact, okay? But here's my point. It's time-consuming. It's expensive because, first of all, you have to build a chicken coop. You have the construction costs and the building of the coop itself. There's also a strong smell from chickens. There's noise. There's rodent, raccoons, mink, rats, mice. Feed is laying on the ground most generally because they scratch and claw and kick it out, and those are brought in by it. There's daily maintenance. There's dust, which is a health issue created by the chickens. People have to collect the eggs. There's wildlife conflicts. There's behavioral problems by the chickens. Now, all chickens are mild and meek-mannered. They can get pretty mean sometimes. I agree with the slaughtering. There should be no slaughtering outside in the presence. But what do you do with the remains of the slaughter? And where do they go? Do you want that in your garbage can? I don't. The other thing that really bothers me about that is, well, this whole situation is, if you're raising a chicken to eat, it takes 3 to 4 months before that chicken is even be able to eat. So that time, based on our COVID-19, and that's what brought this up, is I'm thinking well beyond this meat issue that we're now having. And I think that's going to be solved in a short period of time. That's my opinion. I don't know that for sure, but that's my opinion. If you're raising them to collect and have eggs, you're looking at 6 months from the time it's a chick to the time it's laying eggs. I'm just not in favor of this. I don't see the need for it. I think it's a thing that can happen, but I'm just not in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other council that wish to weigh in before we take our citizen comments?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Malcolm.
Please go ahead.
I'm going to come out like Councilman Hopkins. I have no skin in the game one way or the other, except to say as a good Christian, I appreciate chicken fried with hot sauce. So, but that's my perspective. I have a question though. There was a reason why the councils before us banned this, and nobody seems to know why that was. And I find that curious. And the second thing I'd like to know is, have we consulted with any of the health departments and find out what is their take and what is their recommending about this? I think that's probably, since we're dealing with a pandemic that's caused by viruses and bad stuff, I think the medical people involved in their spare time, I'm sure they're not really busy right now, could probably give us some professional insight and advice on what they recommend. I think we need to consult with them and see what they recommend, yes, no, up, down, at least have a firm footing. All the information that we can gather would probably be more helpful. And that's the end of my take.
Thank you. Any other council that wishes to weigh in?
I had a counterpoint.
Hey, Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry, am I interrupting?
No, go ahead, John.
I'll just go through my notes here. First of all, I thought it's appropriate to compliment Megan for her passion about this issue, and I'll certainly make my comments and respectful of everybody's opinion and try to be sensitive. But I don't think we have a food shortage, and this idea came up initially. It seemed kind of a frantic appeal to produce food for your family and so forth. We don't have a food shortage. There's all kinds of food in the grocery stores. The problem is with the supply and a production problem, and I think that's going to get worked out here in a couple of weeks. It's in the process of being worked out. There's a good supply in our grocery stores. Backyard chickens don't make money. If anything, they're probably more therapeutic and disciplinary type of chore type activity than to think that you're going to make money or feed your family on backyard chickens, because you can't raise enough to do that. So once again, I understand, the value of, some laying hens in the backyard, something like that. I'm willing to discuss and talk about the issue. I don't think this is very good timing at all. Our city staff, stressed and, realizing a lot of, unexpected expectations that they have to deal with. Now we're going to throw on, inspection and nuisance complaints and permitting and all of these issues, and at a time when there is a certain amount of stress that's extra going on because of the health situation. I don't want to add all that to city staff and so forth. I don't think, as I've mentioned, I don't think during this health crisis and making it an issue to combat the health crisis is the right way to go about this. And I think a couple of council members have said that already. I think, like I said, we can revisit this issue. I don't think we should take it up right now. There are all kinds of extra things that other cities are talking about. Completing classes. One of the cities is talking about inspections every other day, especially for a facility that's not being taken care of very well. There are a lot of people that don't want chickens in their backyards as neighbors. They don't want to be neighbors to someone who has chickens in their backyard. And I know there are, regulations as far as keeping it clean and so forth, the chicken coop, but it doesn't always happen quite so easily as to say something is going to be taken care of the way it's worded to be taken care of in code. And kind of an extenuating circumstance or maybe embellishing here a little bit, but are we going to let people raise a couple of hogs in their backyard or, some other kind of animal? So I think we should, someone should make a motion. I'd be glad to, but I think we need to table this issue, bring it up in a few months, and move on with a good, productive solution to it. I'm not opposed to, like I say, some laying hens, something like that, but this is just wrong timing for me.
Thank you, John. Councilwoman Gordon, did you have a follow-up comment?
Yeah, just to Councilman Malcolm, I don't know if it's banning, but in 2016 there was a fairly successful, it was almost successful, a run at adding an ordinance to allow backyard chickens, or a pilot program that was supposed to be implemented in 2017, and it sounds like it failed or did not pass on the third reading. And it could have been some information, I don't know exactly, I didn't go through all the minutes, but it might have been based on some thoughts on health or sanitary, I'm not certain there. But there was a pretty educated and thought out process that they were trying to adopt in 2016. I don't want people to think there's a ban, we were trying to get it allowed. So to make it clear and make a really clear, defined program. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. All I
Thank you. Councilman Brackett, did you have a follow-up?
I did, just in regards to some of the concerns about the smell and other issues along those lines. I don't see it as any different than living next door to somebody that's got a dog. We already have, we've got dogs all over the city, and we already have rules in place to address issues if somebody, lets their dogs, create so much mess that it becomes a problem for the neighbor. So, as far as the noise of hens, yeah, they're not silent. No, I agree with that. But I can hear 8 different dogs barking that I can't see at my house, from all over the neighborhood, and I can see 2 dogs in my neighborhood besides my own, but I can hear 8 different dogs. So, I don't see that as an issue that's any bigger than what we already have with other, pets that people have. Yes, there's concern, obviously, about cleanliness because it's something that a lot of people would see as new. I wholeheartedly support having some kind of classes be a part of this. And I would say that we have an extremely fragile food chain, regardless of what groceries, may or may not be at the store right now. And I have watched very closely as this food chain has been disrupted severely. We've got, most of the meatpacking plants around our state, we've seen that they're coming back with nearly half of their staff, half of their people coming back infected. And, I know that our governor very much likes to think that, we're leading the way and we're going to open up soon, but I have grave concern that this is going to drag out much longer than what we're seeing, and that we'll see a big resurgence later in the year. Now, I'm not 100% sure how late in the year you can even, get the young birds, like out of Farm and Fleet. But, so it may be if we wait too long that it's a moot point this year anyway, and we wouldn't see very much adoption of the project because they wouldn't be able to acquire the birds very easily. But they also have all the, you can go to Farm and Fleet and pick up not only the birds, but all of the supplies, the equipment, the hutch, the hutches and things like that. There's a lot of benefits besides, that you can have, and actually John touched on it. It is, there's other projects that, young folk would be able to do as far as, FFA and things like that. Now, I take a little exception to the hog comment because that's actually very clearly spelled out in the city code to completely exclude hogs from any city property, even regardless of the property size in there. So I would never suggest that we should have hogs, and I very clearly would in what I had stated was only saying chickens. So guinea fowl, peacocks, things like that are mentioned in city code is restricted. Yeah, those are extremely loud. Guinea, I don't know if you've heard of guinea fowl, but they're loud and obnoxious birds. And I understand the concern with fast tracking it. I would like to just see us start to move forward on this. As Councilwoman Gordon mentioned, this came very close to changing in 2016. There was a last minute effort from an out of city company that didn't want to see this happen, and they, I think, made pleas to the council, and it did not pass. I think that there was a structure in place in that proposed code that we could look at. Might need a few modifications for current time, but this is something that I would really like to see us move forward with it in a reasonable way. But I'd like to see us move forward with it.
Thank you. Any other comments from council before I go to the citizen comments? You'll have a chance to talk again. So we're going to start with our citizen comments. We're going to start with Megan Kohler. And would you please state your name and address and spell your name? And then proceed, Megan.
Yes, my name is Megan Keeler. My name is spelled M-E-A-G-A-N. Last name is Koehler. I live at 1512 Bidwell Road here in Muscatine.
Please continue.
Council members and Mayor Broderson, I appreciate the time you all have taken this week to speak with me and respond to emails and text messages. I'm very passionate about this issue as I feel it is a matter that needs immediate action. I know that this was mentioned by Councilman Brackett, but our grocery stores are already placing limits on meat purchases. The price of a carton of eggs has doubled and in some stores even tripled in price. Our food supply chain is strained at the very least. And we are facing, according to Tyson, a minimum of 25% decrease in the availability of pork products in our grocery stores. But you've been listening to me talk about the imminent meat shortage for the last week. Here's another area of concern that I have. For the FDA website, routine surveillance inspections of farms and food facilities have been postponed. This poses a very different problem, but still a very serious one. Knowing and trusting our food source is important. Living in an agricultural community, we are very fortunate to have access to some of the very best fresh produce that our country has to offer. Our own Muscatine area farmers market was even voted best in Iowa. But for most Muscatine residents, our meat source is the grocery store. This meat is coming from various meat packing facilities around the Midwest. We have seen their disregard for health and safety in the last month, while little to no precautionary measures were taken to limit the spread of COVID-19 within their facilities. But the choice was theirs, as there was no government body overseeing this process. Are we confident that they will somehow decide that health and public safety mean something to them when the FDA isn't overseeing the handling of the meat products they produce? Muscatine citizens need to be allowed to provide a safe, healthy, reliable food source for their families. But waiting around for three readings in the midst of a global pandemic is irresponsible at best and downright negligent at its worst. I, along with many other citizens of our fine community, implore you to take immediate action. I very respectfully request the council fast track this issue so that Muscatine citizens can start preparing for what may come. If you wait until the grocery store has no meat and citizens cannot even find chickens to purchase, it will be a grave injustice. Time is of the essence. We don't need to regulate this into ineffectivity. I have shared with all of you the Des Moines ordinance that is incredibly effective. They use a nuisance reporting response on a case-by-case basis, which has been very successful. Please consider this information that I have provided for you. I am more than willing to assist with any process, however I can, going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keeler, and I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
That's all right.
Next, we have Angel, am I pronouncing it right, Wynn?
Yes, that's correct.
Please state your name, state and spell your name, and give your address, and share your thoughts.
Okay. Angel Wynn. It's N as in no, G-U-Y-E-N. And I live at 3206 Mulberry Avenue.
Please continue.
Okay. I just wanted to speak in approval and of getting this fast tracked. I think that we need to be proactive rather than reactive. I think that there is a major issue in the supply chain, which Megan has already spoke to. However, I think we need to address the positives of having backyard chickens. I know that I sent an email earlier this week about that, but I don't see much of a difference in having backyard chickens as compared to a loud barking dog or a dirty, smelly kennel from a dog. So everybody has to take responsibility for their animals, whether it be a dog or a cat or backyard chickens. So we have to keep ourselves and our citizens accountable for that. And somebody had mentioned earlier about trying to make money off backyard chickens. That's definitely not the point. It's just to be self-sufficient and providing not only a food source for our families, but an educational experience for my children to not only learn how to take care of chickens, but it's emotionally beneficial as well. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments and thoughts. Next, we have Jennifer DeFosse. Are you there, Jennifer?
I am. Can you hear me, Mayor Broderson?
Yes, I can. If you'd please state your name, state and spell your name, and give your address, and then share your thoughts.
Okay. My name is Jennifer DeFosse. It's Jennifer. Last name Defosse, and I live at 1564 Washington Street here in Muscatine. As many of you know, I am the manager of the Muscatine Area Farmers Market, and locally sourced food is a real passion of mine. I am definitely in support of fast-tracking this issue. I think I have a little concern listening to some of our council members' comments about how there's food on the shelves right now and we don't have anything to worry about. This is going to pass by in a matter, in some short time. The fact is the situation is very fluid. And a month ago, I was walking through Aldi, and it was one of the eeriest experiences in my life. The entire freezer section was empty. There was no meat to be had, no canned goods to be had. I realized that was at the height of the panic buying, but the fact is this situation is fluid, and there is no way that we can determine whether or not we're going to go through that experience again. I was just grocery shopping today for the first time. I haven't been in a grocery store in almost a month, and it's an eerie sight. You have to wait in line. I was in Davenport at Costco and then Aldi there, and you have to wait in line. There are limits on everything. I think it's not safe to say that we don't have a disruption in our
food supply right now, and I think it's not safe to say that it can't possibly get worse because the situation is so fluid. I think it's better here to let our citizens be prepared, and I think that the safest and most reliable place to get your food right now is in your own backyard. Second would be the farmer's market when it opens on June 2nd at the Muscatine Mall. Anyway, so that's really all I have to say about that. I definitely support this. I do support fast tracking it, and I hope you'll let our citizens be in charge of making safe choices for their family and providing food security for their family. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. We appreciate your comments. We did have John Cook, our Water Resource and Recovery Director, wants us to make sure that we consider waste removal and how that process is going to work. And then, Andrew, would you like to address the Title 10, the city code?
Yes, Mayor, Council, just would like to point out, just as a matter of procedure, that currently chickens are regulated under Title 10 of City Code, which is the zoning ordinance, and Section 1031-6A of City Code requires that all changes to the zoning ordinance, which includes this, it needs to have a hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission and have them make a recommendation on the issue prior to council officially taking any action on it.
So this is something that would need to, this goes to what Councilwoman Gordon was referring to, starting the process at the beginning and having it work through the appropriate channel.
Sure. Mayor, Council, there's probably two ways you could handle it. One is you could ask the Planning and Zoning Commission to kind of independently develop a recommendation on it, or if there was a particular model that you as the council wanted, you could send it to them, get their recommendation on it, then take action on it as council sees fit. So those would be the procedures for it.
Thank you, Andrew. And lastly, Interim City Administrator Greg Jenkins has spoken with Highline in Wilton, Jeremy Lease, I believe he is, who opposed this the last time, and apparently he still does. So, Greg, if you'd like to introduce him, is that what you wanted?
Yes, Mayor, and I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to talk. I don't know that I would say that Jeremy was not here the last time this took place. He's a new plant manager there, and I would think I'd just let him explain to you his position on this. I found it very interesting to hear him talk about the rules and regulations encountered and the things that take this. So he's also grew up with chickens, so I don't think you'll find him to be anti-chicken by any stretch. Jeremy?
Thank you. Are you on the line, Jeremy?
Can you hear me?
Yes, please state and spell your name and give your address and then share your thoughts.
Okay, my name is Jeremy Lease, L-I-E-S. I live in Wilton. My address is 317 East 2nd Street, if it matters exactly where I live. One of the things, so Greg talked to me, he was asking me, and no, I was not a part of the first run at this. I've only been at this place for 2 years now.
Excuse me, was it your company though?
It was our company, but a different location at the time.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
please continue. Sorry.
No, you're fine. He had his reasons, and he had good reasons for what he said, I'm sure. Talking to Greg, one of the things that I guess listening to the folks talk from the public, I grew up with chickens, so I'm not anti-chicken. I'm not anti-backyard chicken. So you're not going to catch me saying those things. So it's the city council's choice. It's your guys' choice on whether or not you do it or not. Highline's concern, or as a person that understands all the rules that go with this, whether somebody brought up the health concerns, there are some health concerns that people don't take care of the birds. There's some salmonella concerns, some E. coli concerns. Those are all things that if you're clean about it and you do it correctly, it should not be a concern.
I would recommend, somebody brought up the idea of training. Training would be key and very vital to this because they need to understand what are they looking for disease-wise. Because the disease is where you're going to get in trouble inside the town. So say avian influenza, we just had a spike on the East Coast just recently. They've cleared it out. But in the process of this, if it were to show up in a backyard flock like it did in 2015, which is why Alma, the previous guy, was talking, was because we were in the height of an avian influenza crisis. The problem is so what we'll do as a state has nothing to do with us commercial people. This is the state veterinary labs and things like that. They're going to find out where the positive case is at. They're going to draw a 3-kilometer circle around that spot. And they will test every chicken they can find inside that spot. They'll test parakeets. They will check any bird of avian species whatsoever. They're going to check them all. Now they're going to draw blood. If they test positive, they'll euthanize it. If they find more, they're going to make that 3-kilometer circle bigger and bigger. And they will test everything within a 7 kilometers and check those birds. And those are kind of, they just kind of watch those. And then 10-kilometer circle is everything that they will regulate what comes in and out. The concern here is, so if you have a backyard chicken and it tests positive for avian influenza, which is spread by wild birds flying over, you guys are on the river, it's brought in by geese, by ducks. They're carriers, but they don't die of it. But if they fly over, droppings were to land in your yard, the chickens were to get exposed to them, you could possibly get avian influenza that way. So if you have a feed mill, say like Kent Feeds is making feed, if they were to supply feed to a turkey place and they're within the 3 kilometers, they can't transport that feed off that mill to the turkeys. They won't be able to go out of the 3 kilometers, they can come in, but they can't go out. So you'll end up having to restrict some of your commercial people as far as your feed mills. Even your ethanol plants will be restricted. They'll have to have, basically they'll have to permit all trucks with grain coming in and out, making sure that they know exactly where they're going so that we don't accidentally spread it into a commercial area. I see somebody's talking about this isn't large agricultural. No, it's not, but it does. It's going to happen with the little ones too. It doesn't matter size. They will check. It's actually in 2015 when it started in the backyard. And that's where the problem really started at. And is it the backyard people's fault? Absolutely not. It's just the way it works. So just because it's backyard or not backyard, that I wouldn't worry about that. Just understand that if you pass it, you do need to understand what the bigger scheme of the thing is. If you get avian influenza is one of them. Right now, California is fighting exotic Newcastle disease. They call it something else, but that's our term for it, is exotic Newcastle. It's the Newcastle disease we don't have a vaccine for. And they have control zones, and they're controlling counties in California and getting access. So I'm not against it. I'm not speaking against it. I just want you to understand there's some implications behind it. Does this affect Highline as a company? Not really. We'll figure out how to get away from what's going on. We'll go around. We have a facility that's west of Muscatine. We can go around to get to it. We drive through Muscatine with some of our trucks to get to Missouri. We'll go around it. We'll work around what's going on there. But just understand that backyard people sometimes, so I will agree with the people that have spoke. They're pets. These are not commercial animals, they're pets. And so as pets, if something were to happen and someone's got to come in, are they willing to let somebody take that pet away? Because they got to test it, and if it tests positive, they will have to euthanize it. They do that to our birds, they'll do that to the backyard flock too. It doesn't necessarily matter.
Thank you.
I don't see any other people that wish to weigh in. Council, do you have any comments that you would like to readdress? The other comments that I've just heard are, you know, what would they do with the waste? Our transfer station can't take fecal waste, or John at the Water Resource Recovery, but I wonder what they do when people throw away cat litter when they change it. John, can you weigh in on that?
I'm talking about the wastewater plant. When it goes to the transfer station, that goes to the landfill. That's a different situation.
Okay, so what do you mean you can't take it down there? Would people try to take it down there?
You can't put it down the sewer. We can't take it.
Can't put it down the sewer. So they can put it in their trash just like they do when they change their litter box.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
Okay. All right.
I would like to weigh in, Mayor.
Please go ahead.
Okay, first off, I would like to thank the gentleman from Highline for his comments. I think that they were very helpful, and I appreciate his stance on it, and wanted to thank him for that. So, in regards to John Cook's comment, I would agree with him. I would hope nobody would try and flush this type of thing down their toilet. That would be counterproductive to their plumbing, I would think, as well. With the proper training and the proper treatment, the waste material from the chickens can also make very good garden fertilizer. You know, I do agree that there should be some training involved, that people are going to take care of these birds. I think everybody knows I'm a big animal lover, so I would not want to see these birds put into a situation where they're being abused or neglected, and that is definitely something I would want to avoid. In regards to the process that we need to follow, Andrew made a great point. This does need to go before that commission, and what I would like to see is I would like to see that commission take the Des Moines regulations and bring something back to council as soon as possible so that we can look at this. As far as fast tracking goes, I would not want to fast track past that part of the process, but when we get to the actual reading of the code, that would be where I would be more interested in, just given the situation and the timing during this point in the year, I would be in favor of potentially skipping one or more of the readings, because it would have to typically go through 3 readings, which, as you know, I'm very supportive of in most cases, but just given the timing of this having to do with the acquisition of birds during this particular calendar year, I would like to see that move forward at a faster rate. I don't want to skip over the fine details. I don't want to skip over getting things right, but once we have things right and we can move forward, that would be where I would like to see us move expeditiously. So, thank you.
So can council agree, can we get a consensus to ask staff to look into this project, this program, this modification, whatever you'd like to call it, have them look at perhaps some other cities like Des Moines and some of them that Peggy mentioned, Iowa City, and certainly talk to planning and zoning, come back to us with some kind of a plan, certainly being mindful of the fact that we are running out of time this year. I'm not sure. That's kind of what I'm hearing from council. If that's off base, please weigh in.
Mayor, this is John. Hello?
We can hear you,
Yes.
John.
You can hear? Okay.
We can hear you.
Like I say, I support new things, I guess, and the backyard chickens and the hens and so forth, but I would tend to agree with Peggy and Andrew, that you need to just take the proper time frame with this, if that's what Peggy is still suggesting, and I, respect everyone else's opinion and certainly passion for the issue. I'm not that, frantic, I guess, or, dissenting about our prospect for having food to subsist on here in our country, and I think we're going to make a strong, comeback from some of the apprehension that people have about our food supply. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, I'll put it back to council. What do you want to do?
I would ask that exactly what you said, Mayor, is that we look for consensus to have staff take this to the Planning and Zoning Commission and come back to us with a workable ordinance change that we can discuss at that time. And I would ask that they do it in a time frame, the shortest time frame possible, understanding the restrictions that we have in place right now, understanding the workload issues that we have. I understand that. And so I'm not saying drop everything else and move this in its place. I'm saying put this in the place where it fits best, that we can get it done as soon as possible and have something to discuss it at as soon of a council meeting as we can.
This is Councilwoman Gordon.
Go ahead.
Okay, and I agree that I think moving it, and thank you, Andrew, for bringing this up, moving it to the planning and zoning and coming back with recommendations by the staff, because they're the ones that are going to have to implement this and make sure that we can sustain it. As to fast tracking, I'm still sort of opposed. I want to make sure we have time to hear from other residents. Most of the people I spoke to are positive. Outside of Megan and Jennifer, I've spoke to other people, and most of them are good with it. I've had some very definitive no's, and a couple that I really don't care. I really do believe that we're looking at 1% or less of our households that would be interested in putting in backyard chickens, just based on the permits that I've seen from other cities. So it is important. I think we need to move forward, but in our normal flow. But if we can get it on planning and zoning quickly and have them review it, that would be great.
Mayor, Council, if I could
Can we get? Yes, go ahead.
I could just to kind of give you an idea what the timeline would be. Planning and Zoning Commission, they meet the second Tuesday of every month. Their May meeting is already sent. The agenda's been out, so that's next Tuesday. So that it wouldn't be possible to make that meeting. So were to go to a regularly scheduled meeting, that would be June 9th. You could request that they have a special meeting on it sooner if that were to be the pleasure of council. But June 9th would be their next available agenda for it. And
In which case would we be able to discuss it at the June in-depth?
Yeah.
Mayor, we were going to talk about pit bulls in June.
Oh, that's true, we were.
You wouldn't, Mayor,
If we are in person again.
Mayor?
Andrew,
Yes.
Yes.
Who said mayor?
Jody
Jody.
did. Jody's trying to speak.
Oh, I was just going to
Okay.
say, you wouldn't have an agenda, you wouldn't have, unless they adopted something and it was verbatim, you wouldn't have anything ready because it'd be 2 days later for or potentially 2 days later with the timing, the second Tuesday to the second Thursday.
That would be if they stuck to the current schedule and we didn't request an earlier meeting, which I would be in favor of asking if possible, not directing, not requiring, but asking if possible that they have a additional meeting to discuss this item.
this is Councilwoman Gordon. I have a question for Andrew based on the agenda for the planning and zoning. I know that their meeting is next week. I saw the agenda come out. That is less than a week away, but outside the 24-hour posting window. Is there a reason that we can't get it on next week's agenda?
Legally, no.
Or is that not adequate?
But I think if you know, to have time for me to prepare something for them to review and for them to review it gets a little tight. They also do have an agenda item that I do expect a fair amount of lengthy discussion on, in regards to potential expansion at Cottage Grove. They'll be discussing that night.
Would they be willing to do it?
I mean, if that's the council's direction, I will certainly make all efforts to get that done. Absolutely.
Well, no, you do need time to study it and provide information to them, and that might be a little short. But how often do they have special meetings? This would not be an inconvenience. Could they still do it maybe a week or two after their next scheduled meeting?
That would, my experience with potentially, that would be, coordinating with those 7 people, and if their schedules allow it. Typically, once they're on the commissions, they, hold the second Tuesday of the month open. So we have, on occasion, found dates for special meetings that works. Sometimes it could be a challenge, sometimes it's not. Given the current circumstances where a lot of things are canceled and you can meet from home, it's possible that it'd be easier now.
So, Councilman Member Gordon, this is Greg Jenkins. If you'll permit me to inject myself into this process, we'll take a look at how we can move this along with that planning and zoning with Andrew. Because I think it can be introduced next week. It won't be a final discussion, but we maybe can just get something lifted off the floor with that group, and then we'll go from there.
The other thing it would kind of depend on what your direction would be. If the direction were simply, say, examine what they have in Des Moines and make a recommendation, whether or not that's appropriate for Muscatine, you can do that pretty quick. If you wanted them to look at a greater number and kind of come up with a more in-depth recommendation, you probably need a little more time for that. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for from them.
I would say if they look at, if they could look at Des Moines and see if they think that what Des Moines has would work for us and could come back with a recommendation quickly, that would be great. If they don't think that it would quite fit for Muscatine, then I would understand the need for additional time.
Because Des Moines is not apples to apples for us. We have to compare to right-sized towns. The problem is I looked at Marshalltown, they have nothing. They don't allow them. And that's usually a normal benchmark for us. So we need to look at, Oskaloosa, Ottumwa, Burlington. Even the Davenport's not too bad, but it might be a little low on the number of chickens allowed. So it might need a little more time, but can that get the ball rolling so on our June 9th meeting, they can have a really good idea and a plan to present to us in June?
Well, I mean, the other thing that potentially I could offer is to bring the issue up with them next Tuesday, kind of present them some materials and ask them to set a special meeting date, a couple weeks later where they had time to digest it and make their recommendation.
That would be perfect, Andrew.
I think that's a great idea. Yep.
Could I make a comment? Councilman Jim?
Yes.
Anticipating 1% of our population taking part in this. What does the other 99% of our population think about this being an issue that we need to act on expeditiously? I'm not sure I'm putting 2 and 2 together here quite accurately. 1% of our population, even 2% of our population is going to be involved in backyard chickens. And during this time of a lot of concerns with health and how we're managing our city, jobs and employment and so forth, and we're discussing quick action on backyard chicken policy. I don't think that's very good optics for a large majority of our city.
Well, and John, I bring that up. I brought up that number because it is a low number of households, but I think the households that would go through the permitting process, the training process, would be committed, and they are a passionate group. I don't want to downplay that at all.
I don't either.
And I think that they would hopefully do it correctly, and that's the key. Is we do have a habit of not sometimes. So, but it is a potentially small portion because there is financial investment, time commitments, and you've got live animals, that you're committed to. So I think if we could work this out and get things moving, it's not a bad idea as long as we still stay within our normal process to make sure that the city can maintain the program.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents. I'm sorry, John.
And
I would like to add in. I would like to add in something that we haven't really talked about yet regarding the backyard chickens. Some of the work that I looked into when we talked about this 4 years ago, and even some people brought that to our attention at the time, was it's not always just about food and the eggs and the chickens, but having backyard chickens can help people in other ways. One of the ways is studies have shown that it can be very therapeutic for people that are going through the grieving process. Perhaps an elderly person has lost their spouse. That can give them purpose to get up in the morning and talk to their chickens and walk through their day doing different things. And I have read that it really can help some people with depression. Certainly it can help families that perhaps are looking at trying to help their children become more responsible, to give them duties and responsibilities of things that they need to do. So I think that there are a lot of different things to think about when we look at starting a program like this. And I thought also last time the Muscatine Egg Layers had put together quite a comprehensive program that perhaps pieces can be drawn from that for study by the Planning and Zoning.
Yeah, and
but where I think we... go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you'd finished.
It's all right.
So I just wanted to reiterate, we do not currently have a ban on chickens. Chickens are allowed in town. They're just not allowed in town if you're not rich enough to own enough property for it. So we don't have a ban on chickens. We allow chickens. So this would just be modifying basically our existing code to allow, more people to own chickens instead of only those that are wealthy enough to own, 2 to 20, or, more than 2 acres, or 20 acres or more. So, and we do have plots in there. And if you go back to the council meetings from when this was talked about in 2016, you can see it then, that everything that was discussed at that time. But, I just want to remind people, we don't currently ban chickens. We just ban them for some people.
Okay, well, I feel like everybody pretty much has been able to share what their comments and concerns are. What I'd like to hear now, and I'll go around to each council person and ask, is do we have a consensus to move this to staff who can take it to planning and zoning and start a process to bring back more information to us? I mean, I wanted to join on as well and thank Megan and Angel and Jennifer, as well as Jeremy, for presenting their thoughts and ideas. But I do think perhaps there's more information for us that staff is going to be able to bring to us through the planning and zoning. So I'm going to go around to council and ask if you consent to moving this forward in this process where it goes to staff and planning and zoning to bring more information back to us, hopefully at our June in-depth. There is, I did get something typed in that after May, chickens are no longer going to be sold, the chicks. And so I believe that was part of the reason that they were asking for this to be fast-tracked, because if they don't get an answer tonight, they're not going to be able to purchase the chicks until fall, I believe. So, but I'm going to, it doesn't sound like I'm hearing council agree to this fast track for tonight. So where I'm hearing it go from all of you is that perhaps we can send it to staff. So I'm going to just go down the list. Councilwoman Gordon, do you consent to sending this to staff to work with planning and zoning to bring back more information?
Yes, I consent.
And Councilman Malcolm?
Yes, Your Honor, I agree.
And Councilman Freilich?
I agree to bring it to get more information, but I object to fast tracking.
Councilman Hopkins?
Yes.
And Councilwoman Brocker?
Yes.
And Councilman Gendrich?
I agree to visit the issue, but I think it should go on a regular time frame, and planning and zoning can come up with a plan from their second meeting in June.
Thank you. Councilman Brackett?
I think you know where I stand, but yeah, obviously I would like to see this discussed. I like what Andrew had to say, and so if staff feels that they can move it faster than, you know, at their decision, then I think they should have the ability to do so.
So it sounds like I have consensus for this to go to staff and planning and zoning and bring it back to us in June. I am getting typed in the chat. Can we just look at waiving the size limitation of the yard in the meantime? I think the answer to that, Megan, I'm sure that that's not what you want to hear, but I don't believe that that fits within the parameters of our guidelines regarding our code. Am I correct on that, Andrew?
Mayor, that'd be correct. The 2 acres written in the code, so where you'd want to change it, that the process would be to have a hearing before P&Z, have their recommendation, have a hearing before council, then have council do as many 1 to 3 readings, depending on how many you choose to do.
So we couldn't just say tonight we're going to just lessen the amount of land they need to own.
No, not without contradicting code.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that I was answering all of the questions that they had shared. And I know John Cook said we wanted to discuss regulations of waste management. I think we touched on that. And again, so we do have consensus, and Andrew, you can take it from there, but I do want to thank the people, as Councilwoman Gordon pointed out. These people have very passionately worked something that's very important to them, and went through the appropriate steps to bring it to council. They didn't just sneak and have chickens on the side, and I want to thank and appreciate them for following the steps that they should take to make a change when they disagree with something the way it is. So appreciate that. We are going to move down to number 13, approval of bills. Since this was removed from the consent agenda by Councilwoman Brockert, we discussed it in the normal sequence that it would normally come up. So we have bills totaling $3,164,596.75. I will ask for a motion to approve the bills.
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
And a second, please.
Second by Gordon.
And now discussion, Councilwoman Brockert, I will let you speak to that.
All right, thank you so much, Mayor. I actually had 2 things I was going to discuss, but I think one of these items is better suited to a budget hearing. I did have a question, though. We had transmission obviously changed out and emergency suspension steering work done at Courtesy Ford. That totaled $8,169.18. Is there a reason that we did not use our own local dealership for this?
Your Honor, this is Brian Steinman, Public Works Director. I don't know the answer to that right now, but I will look into that and get you an answer in the morning if that's okay.
Sure, that's fine, Brian. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilwoman Brockert, is there any other things that you wanted to bring up?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. So here, we'll get some more information on that tomorrow. The bill's already been incurred, so we will go ahead and proceed with a voice vote to approve this. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion carries. The motion carries and the bills are approved. Next, we have comments from council members. Councilman Gendrich, do you have anything tonight?
I do. I think positive note, a terrific community we live in for sure. A lot of people looking out for each other. And I want to make a special shout out to the United Way, Muscatine Center for Social Action, MCSA, and Salvation Army for the efforts that they have made to feed over 600 people a week with free meals. The Kent Corporation and the Community Foundation of Muscatine has been instrumental in making sure that those agencies all have what they need to provide all those free meals. And, another service that's going on, terrific event, the food rescue program, donated food by Hy-Vee, Fairway, and Aldi's. I think those people and all those efforts deserve a special shout out. So that's my take for tonight.
Thank you. Councilman Hopkins, do you have anything to share tonight?
As a matter of fact, I do. A week ago tomorrow, actually 2 weeks ago tomorrow, I called the transfer station in the morning to schedule a pickup truck for the following Monday. Well, she told me in a very nice fashion that Monday was full, but that a week from that Monday would suit them better. And I said, fine with me, so we scheduled that. That Monday came along, which was this past Monday. They picked all my stuff up. Everything went just fine. And the only reason I bring this to your attention is there's been a little bit of scuttlebutt this week, and some sort of blame on the transfer station for their processes and procedures. I didn't have a problem with it. Thank you.
Good to hear. Thank you. Councilman Malcolm.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor. Thank you.
Councilwoman Gordon.
Nothing more tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Brockert.
Nothing else tonight, Your Honor. Thank you.
Councilman Freilich.
Nothing more tonight, Your Honor. Thank you.
Councilman Brackett.
I had a question in regards to the new trail, like along Hauser and other areas where it is considered the trail and larger than a normal sidewalk, I believe. There were some questions that somebody tagged me on Facebook about this, asking who's responsible for snow removal and things like that along the trail system, where it goes alongside private property, and is it treated the same as a sidewalk?
Your Honor, this is Brian Steinman, Public Works Director. And Jim can jump on if he's still around. My understanding is that the trail section will be managed and snow removal will be done by the city and not the residents there. So it'd be different than the sidewalk situation because it is a city trail.
That's correct.
Perfect. Good to know. That was my understanding, but I was not 100% sure, and so thank you very much for the clarification on that. And then, yeah, the other thing I would just continue to urge people to, maintain the social distancing. It is effective, and, wear a mask if you can. If you can't, then try and add some extra space in when you've got to go somewhere. It's important that we continue to reduce the spread of this virus and to, protect each other. So that's all I've got tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg, did you have anything tonight?
No, Mayor, I think we're good to go. Thanks.
Cinda? Anything?
Nothing here.
All right. I just had a couple things. Thank you, everyone, for the very long meeting. And we aren't like the Supreme Court. I didn't hear any flushing going on today through this meeting.
It's only a matter of time.
For those of you who didn't hear that, maybe some of you didn't hear that the Supreme Court did an online one and a toilet was flushed in the middle. We didn't hear any of that. I just wanted to say, I'm going to move my screen down a little bit. So the Community Foundation of Greater Muscatine has shirts for sale that say Staying at Home Muscatine County. And that is to support everybody staying at home and following the recommended guidelines. And of course, all the money from the proceeds of the t-shirts go to support the nonprofit organizations that they support throughout our community. So big thanks to them, and big thanks to them for helping to help run the small business forgivable loan program. I'm hearing a lot of good things on that. So everybody stay safe and healthy. I apologize for the late night of the meeting, but next week we will be talking at the in-depth meeting, and we'll have a couple of different topics on there, but hopefully it doesn't go 2.5 hours. Have a wonderful evening and stay safe. Good night.
Mayor, I have one little thing.
Good night. Yes. Go ahead.
It just hit me as you were talking. Some of the small businesses will start to open tomorrow with limited access. So if you can support or have a desire to be looking for something new, please start to support the small businesses around town again. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All the way through this whole thing and forever. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. We're adjourned. Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Cindy, you should have seen yourself. Why? Can you hear me, Cinda? Because you have like a yellow shirt behind you, and there's like a drapery, and then your shirt looks yellow too, and you look like a queen, like on your chair. Can you let Greg know that I'm now known as Christmas, Cinda? There you go.